welcome you this morning. With us, Jim Glassman of JPMorgan Chase. Jim, we see a better labor economy. This is good news for the administration, but still duration longer. There's still that 2 jobless reports, those chronically unemployed, and a little better tone for those employed.
Yeah, and the truth is, although the economy is growing, most people's view about what's going on is going to be based on where unemployment is, and it's going to take a long time to get unemployment to come down. And I think most people are going to be skeptical when unemployment is so high. What we see and what we don't see so high, most folks are going to be skeptical if there's anything going on. But the truth is, there is hope. The economy is growing. We're starting to see more and more signs behind the scenes that something's happening, and it isn't going to be long before we start to see reasonable employment growth.
Okay, so the shift we've seen over the past year or so away from spending and towards saving on the part of consumers, that's not going to be reversed, even though this is a pretty big drop in the unemployment rate.
I doubt it. I think, well, a lot of that big rise in saving was helped by fiscal stimulus. People, they cut taxes. There's a bunch of transfer payments that went to folks. But I think, honestly, the consumer's been doing their share. Consumer spending has been pretty steady. It's really the dynamic change in the economy has been coming about from the business sector, which was hunkering down, and now they've got things about where they need, and they're very profitable. So it's time. They're starting to move again.
Can we look back at that 10.2% that we saw for October, Jim, and say that's the high? Do we want to go that far?
You might be right. I think there's every reason to believe that might have been the top, because the economy is growing. And if we're growing to 4% like we did in the second half of last year, there's no reason why unemployment shouldn't be coming down.
There is an emotion out there, FDR 1932, just do something. Well, the unemployment rate seems to be doing a little better.
Yeah.
Underemployment rate under 17%. What's the do something? What is the Glassman prescription for the administration as they face political economics?
Well, they did what they needed to do. Big fiscal stimulus. The Fed reacted. The economy is growing. That's what you can hope to do. And so I think they put in place everything that you should do, and we're starting to see the fruits of that play out now. And it just what we forget is that employment takes a very long time to turn around.
And do you agree with Krugman in the New York Times this morning, this idea of a further fiscal impulse and to keep it coming on, even though we've got a directionally better unemployment rate?
I don't really agree with that, because I think we've got a lot to spend still in the first fiscal stimulus. We've only spent $170 billion of the $575 billion.
That's a good point.
Yeah, there's plenty more to do, and the Fed's got rates at 0, and they've done a lot, and the market is starting to respond. The economy is starting to respond. So I think, given the worries about the fiscal deficit, it's best to watch things play out.
And Ken, I know you got a question. 2-year yield 0.81, so we've come back 3 beeps nicely on 2-year yield. That's a sign of positive market reaction to the jobs report.
So what you're saying, Jim, is there's a point at which there can be too much stimulus.
Yeah, it can be counterproductive. And I think we're at that point where if we start spending so much more, it's going to be counterproductive, because it's going to make people worry more. We don't want to inherit the Greek problems.
Well, tell me about real wages, this idea of low inflation. I mean, Bruce Kasman's all over the place here. Optimistic economy, but low inflation. I mean, how will our paychecks go in 2010?
Well, we hope they're better than they were. I mean, wages have slowed down a lot. 2% or so is average hourly earnings. Of course, our employers have to pay an awful lot for health care. And so the bigger picture is the more they've got to pay for health care, the less they're going to be able to pay in wages. But when you're in a recession, you expect pay in real terms to suffer, and it is. And I think as the economy begins to recover, you'll see more and more signs that pay is starting to stabilize. And that should play out.